Welcome to the Daily Commercial Forum. I am your host, Sandy Moore. Living in Central Florida, it is important that we prepare ourselves for hurricane-force winds and flooding. Today, we will talk about what you should include in your emergency plan. Our guests are Spencer Costas, Disaster Assistant Specialist of Lake County's Emergency Management Division, Barbara Dunn, Public Affairs Officer for the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, City of Leesburg Fire Chief Kevin Bowman, and Jim Russell, Emergency Services Officer for the American Red Cross. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's start off by finding out. Spencer, can you tell us what is the National Hurricane Center's predictions for this year for hurricanes?
This year, well, let me just say that the hurricane season goes from June 1st to November 30th, and this year they're predicting between 13 and 20 named storms. And that's wind speeds anywhere between 39 and 73 miles an hour. 7 to 11 may become hurricanes, with 3 to 6 becoming major hurricanes.
Now, how does that compare to other years? Do you know?
They call this year, it's actually supposed to be a hyperactive season. And each season, it could have, there could be more storms, but people get a little complacent whenever the storms don't actually affect them or impact plans. So.
Right. I know that there's been years where they've predicted, we're going to have all these storms, and then nothing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's been years when you really didn't necessarily think that something was going to happen.
Even last year, they anticipated it to be a very slow season, and it was the third busiest in record. So it's not exact science.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things that, I mean, a lot of times in Lake County, we can sometimes get a little complacent when we're thinking about hurricane, because you really think about the major stuff happening on the coast. And in fact, they usually will come to Lake County for their shelters, and they're getting out of the way, so they come to the center of the state. What are the things that we need to be worried about when it comes to storms? Chief?
Well, I think most people really don't prepare enough. Have that food available for you. They say at least a 3-day supply. Water, medications, personal hygiene items. Be prepared. If we have a major hurricane, category 3, 4, 5, whether it comes in at the Gulf of Mexico or it comes in off the Atlantic, it's only 60 miles away from us, and it won't lose a whole lot of steam when it gets here. So we have to be prepared. Back in 2004, when we had the hurricanes, they actually didn't have hurricane winds here in Lake County. We only had tropical storm force winds, and we saw the damage that they did to the trees and the electrical grid. So, on the average day when you can run to the store and fill your car with gas and stop at Publix or another store and get your food, but if they have no electricity, that really will cause problems. So preparedness is the key.
And what are we preparing for? I mean, what types of things? I mean, I know wind. What else, Spencer?
They say to hide from the wind and run from the water. So you have both wind and flooding, and severe weather, tornadoes, for example. With the rain bands that come ashore, you're going to have the possibility of wind, hail, any sort of tornadic activity is quite possible. So whenever we talk about being prepared and being prepared for a hurricane, it is all hazards that you should be prepared for.
Now, I know we're going to go over quite a few different aspects of precautions, and I know the Red Cross is we see them as the ones who react after the storm. But what kind of things, Jim, can we do ahead of the storm that we need to do? Like with the Red Cross, what kind of things do you all do through the Red Cross?
Well, I think the most important thing people should take away from any hurricane preparedness meeting or information is get a kit, make a plan, be informed. And the kit is your home personal kit. We recommend 2 weeks supplies for your home of water and food, and 3 days for evacuations. Making a plan is what's your personal plan? Who do you contact? Your family members? Who knows where you're at so they can make sure you're safe and well? And be informed. There are a number of different social media sites now that support applications. Red Cross has apps that people can sign up for and get all the information we're going to discuss today as well. But to be informed of where the storm is at, watch your local media, see what evacuation shelters might be opened by the county, because they're not always going to open the same ones. But pretty much have that good plan in place. It doesn't take a whole lot to get it together, and then you can just dust it off each year in May, once you have it done.
And if we're talking about, you just said 2 weeks of food, what kind of things do you suggest as
That's
far
a
as
good
those are
question. Long shelf life items are always the best. Canned foods that have the pop top lids instead of the can opener, because if you have an electric can opener, you're not going to be able to open them. Many times we recommend you go and get one of the cheap can openers at the dollar store or anywhere locally, and just have that on hand as part of your kit. It's actually part of the packing item of one of them. Some people do MREs. There's a great new meal out there. They're making great strides with long shelf life meals.
Now, when you say MREs, because I know there's somebody out there, I know what that means, but somebody's not going to know what that means.
Meals ready to eat, primarily seen in the military settings.
Right.
And the heater meals now, but you can simply Google the term heater meal and you're going to see all sorts of options pop up. And they're fairly reasonably priced as well. I've seen them well under $5 a meal that you could keep in longer term in your kit.
What other kind of precautions or things do we need to do for preparing? Like, for example, for our home, what kind of things should we be doing? I mean, I remember there used to be a thing when I was younger where you would tape your windows.
No, that is a hurricane myth. Taping
Yes.
the windows is absolutely ineffective. What they do recommend is to utilize either commercial hurricane shutters, or if you would want a lower cost option, half-inch plywood that's pre-cut, utilizing shelter screws every 18 inches around the windows, just to make sure that glass doesn't blow in and cause even more debris or danger to yourself or others. So they also recommend to seek an interior room, a room with no windows, and
to ride out
the storm. Exactly.
during the storm.
But I think people need to be realistic about their home construction. If they have an older home, I mean, maybe it's not a good place to stay through the storm. If it looks like we're going to have a bad storm, you really should make arrangements to go other places. Shelters are nice, but shelters should be a harbor of last resort. If you have a cousin up in Atlanta and you want to go see her, him, empty out your refrigerator, put it in a cooler, and go up and visit. Because if we lose power and you're gone for a week, what's that food in your refrigerator going to look like when you get home? Yucky. So,
I'd like to add a little bit about debris. Debris in people's yards getting caught up in the wind causes a lot of damage anytime we have wind events, even the smaller ones in Florida. And I've personally seen trampolines get thrown easily. The wind can get underneath those backyard trampolines pretty easy and run right over and cause damage to the neighbor's house.
Right.
And then guess who's responsible? So I was in a conversation a week ago about swimming pools, and should the swimming pool be drawn down prior to heavy rains, and we have a pool, and I would not necessarily, it's a personal choice whether you do that. I don't think you mitigate anything. I would certainly watch the level of it as it rains more and more and drain off some as necessary, but it's also a good place to put your yard furniture.
Yeah, I was just about to say, lawn furniture.
Just throw it in the pool so it doesn't fly around in the wind, and you should physically inspect your property to make sure that you don't have anything that can become a projectile.
Well, and I know the city at this time of year, they are doing some, trying to get rid of debris and clearing out the storm drains and preparing in those ways too. But it does make a lot of sense that we personally need to look around our yard and get rid of some of those things that could be projectiles. Now, we live in Lake County, which of course has all these beautiful lakes and a lot of boaters. Barbara, tell us a little bit about what boaters, people with boats need to do.
Yes, well, just like everything else, you should have a plan in place for your boat before the hurricane is expected. If a hurricane is predicted, don't take your boat out on the water. If there's any chance, the people will. They will take their boats out because, it's sunny right now, but that hurricane's coming and you don't want to be caught out there. It's a very dangerous situation. If you have a boat that you can bring out of the water, trailer it out, you should take it out of the water. You should remove everything that's valuable from that boat. Take it to a place probably not right next door to your house, because like the trampoline, it can become a projectile and damage other people's property besides your own. But put it in a lot somewhere. You want to tie the trailer down. You want to anchor that trailer firmly, and then you want to lash the boat firmly to the trailer. You don't want to leave anything on the boat, but you might want to fill the boat with water, because water will add weight, and that'll help keep it from blowing away. If your boat is docked in a marina, now that's a different story. If you aren't able to bring it out of the water, you want to secure it in the middle of the slip with lines that are long enough that if the water rises, the boat doesn't go somewhere else. And you probably want to double line your boat. And if you have any equipment you have on that boat, get it off of there. Disconnect your batteries. You don't want those batteries hooked up because you could cause a fire if something happened. And you probably want to check the slips that are next to you, because you want to make sure the neighboring slip has done the same thing, because their boat could end up on top of yours. And just use basic common sense as far as stay away from the water. Don't stay there with your boat.
Not good to ride out the storm in a boat.
It's not good. Boats can be replaced. People can't.
Very good. What other kinds of preparations? I know we talked about food, a little bit about food and some things in our homes, but what kind of things are important that we have on hand other than just even the necessities?
Well, I'd like to remind everybody to make sure that their insurance policies are up to date, and if you have things in your home you find valuable, take pictures of them. Down in Homestead, people came back and there was no house left. They just had a slab. Well, if your insurance company shows up and you say, well, I had the Fabergé egg collection here and the grand piano here, and well, do you have receipts for that? Well, yeah, but they flew away with everything else. Take pictures of everything. Go home, clean your house real good, take pictures in every room from every side. Email those pictures to you. Doesn't matter if you're in Illinois or New Mexico or wherever you're at, you still have pictures of those documents. Scan your insurance policies, all your important papers, and send them to you via email, and you always have them when you need them.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that, and because I was thinking, well, I've got a little box where we can, we put important things that's waterproof, but if it's gone, it's gone. So very good. What other kind of things do we need? I mean, I know we talk about this every year, like the weather radio. Having a weather radio is...
Battery-operated weather radio or hand crank would be better. Medications. We have a lot of people have medical needs in the area, and when a storm is imminent, there's a provision in the state that allows folks to extend their prescriptions or get for instance, if there's a hurricane expected to make landfall in 3 days and your prescription's going to run out in 4, they can get additional meds to cover that time.
And that's up to 2 weeks.
Oh,
Up to
okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks of additional medication.
Medication and extra cash. Withdraw cash in case the power goes out. I think everybody saw that widespread in 2004, where ATMs don't work and gas station pumps don't work without electricity and so forth. So you might want to refuel your vehicle as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say, fill up your gas tank
And that boat, so you're ready to go after the storm hits.
while everybody else is sitting in their non-air conditioned home. You can be out on the lake having a good time. What about things like, our pets? I mean, I know that can be a real, that can be a burden on somebody because they're worried about their pets. They may not necessarily be welcome where they're going to go, or if you have bigger pets, livestock, things like that. What do we need to do? What are some things that we need to do with them?
Spencer could probably talk about the evacuation
Absolutely.
shelters in
Yes,
Lake County.
In Lake County, we have 9 public shelters, some of which are pet-friendly and some of which are special needs. If you choose to bring your pet, then they need to be crated. They need to have food and water. You need to be able to take care of them, any sort of medications that they may need. And they need to have proof of the rabies vaccination and any other important vaccinations. So as far as the livestock or any other pets, if you're going to not go to a shelter and just stay at home, use common sense, bring them in, don't leave them out in the storm. So.
Well, I have like the vision of the Wizard of Oz, and they let all the horses out when the storms come in. You gotta let the horses run free, right? Now, is that we don't do that anymore?
No.
Again, just think of the pets and what their needs are, and you got to understand when you have the storm going, it's very foreign to them, so they're going to get very freaked out. And even though your dog is very lovable most of the time, if the winds are howling and the thunder's crashing, they might get a little bit different. So just be aware of that. And after a storm, you might see a strange dog or even maybe a neighbor's dog. They could be freaked out and they might bite you as well. So just have caution. Have caution.
Well, now, I know that, when the storm is happening, it can be, troublesome. You can get, nervous about things. You can see things happen. What should we be doing if we are riding out a storm and maybe we feel the need, like, we're scared, we're worried, or, when is it appropriate to call 911, for example?
I would ask you to call 911 only for emergencies. If you're a little bit scared from the storm, there's probably about a few 100,000 people in Lake County who are also scared from the storm, and resources are going to be thin. They really are. In the average day, we may have 30 emergency workers between police, fire, and EMS in Leesburg, being responsible for 21,000 people. So we'd ask that you only call 911 if there's an emergency. You want to talk a little bit about the Citizens line that'll be available?
Yes, we have the Citizens Information Line, and it's activated whenever the EOC is activated. It's fully staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
We're actually in our new building, the Emergency Communications and Operations Center, and that's where the CIL is held. They can, citizens, if they have any questions of evacuations, or are the government offices going to be open? Are schools going to be open? What shelters are open? Where can I get sandbags? Is there going to be regular trash collection? All of that information and more can go to the CIL line, and that number is 352-253-9999. And I would like to reiterate what Chief Bowman said is, in a hurricane sort of situation, don't call 911 unless it's absolutely an emergency. You have to think of the first responders, and in those high winds, especially tropical storm force and greater, those vehicles they're very tall, and they're not going to necessarily be able to go out to answer every single call that goes out. So that's something that everyone should be mindful of.
Well, and I know we mentioned some of the people that should evacuate. I mean, obviously, if you live in a mobile home, you should plan on getting out of that mobile home.
Absolutely.
What are some other situations like that? Because I do want to get back to the 911 question, but it also has to do with kind of what I'm talking about. But like if you're in an area where it's prone to flooding, would that be what?
Anything that what we would consider a low-lying area, or anything that, like you said, is prone to flooding. Anything that's not a site-built home. Those mobile homes, you need to really consider your evacuation plans and monitor your NOAA weather radio, any sort of media outlets for that evacuation order that's going to be pushed out.
And again, it depends on the category of the hurricane. If we're talking about a very weak Category 1, then the average house is probably going to be fine. If you're looking at a Category 3, 4, or 5, which is a major hurricane, you might want to go, again, to Georgia or whatever to get away from it, because those are tremendously strong storms, and again, we've seen them just take whole houses away.
Well, and I know what scares me really more than the hurricanes usually, because of where we are, but just in general, is the tornadoes that come off of those. And they're so unpredictable. You don't know where they're going to hit. You can know that there's weather that's possible to spawn those tornadoes, but I would think if you're in a home that would be, in that is a possibility of damage, then you would want to look for other alternatives than to stay in this.
The tornadoes are generally spawned in the forward right quadrant of the storm, so it's moving, but it could be a very unpredictable. Tornadic winds can be much more powerful than hurricane winds, you're correct. So if you need to go, maybe you should go early. Don't wait until the last second.
And that is where I was just about to say, when we're doing the 911, what if, you're in a place where you thought you were going to be safe, and then all of a sudden you realize, I need to get out of here. Do you?
I'd like to say we'd save every person in the world, but the reality is, just as Spencer said, when the winds get so high, even the professional rescuers can't go out in there. if you've made a bad decision to stay there and reconsider it later, you may have to live with it, unfortunately.
And I think the more important point is to have a plan and think forward. You don't want to be put into that position where not only are you worried about yourself, but you have to think about the people that are going to have to come and get you. So as long as you have that plan to either evacuate, and it doesn't have to be across the country. It could be at a friend's house, at a hotel, any sort of shelters. We would take in people, but it is important to reach out to your family and friends and not have that sort of situation occur.
And that's why we don't want people to go out on the water in their boats, because we aren't going to be able to get out there to help them. And it would be endangering the auxiliary members to be out there, and just don't do it.
Well, then after the storm, everybody wants to help. What are some do's and don'ts that we really need to be thinking about? I mean, you know, after the storm, you kind of want to get out and see what happened. You want to look, survey the damage. Should we be checking on our neighbors? What are some precautions? Because I know that can be a very dangerous time too.
It is, and it's going to depend on how much damage was done. It's going to depend on how much rain we got. You can get up to 10 inches of rain with a hurricane, and walking through flooded areas is very dangerous. Things that live in the ground, like red ants and scorpions and spiders, they're floating on top of the water now, trying to find something to crawl up on, maybe your leg. Snakes, all kinds of stuff. If there's a power line into the water, it can be energized and could kill you. So be very cautious when you go outside. Certainly it is appropriate to evaluate your building that you're in, your home, to make sure it's still structurally safe for you and your family. But be cautious. Be very cautious.
And wear good shoes. A lot of injuries are born from walking around after the storm barefoot.
Because what happens is those shingles that are held on your roof by nails, when they get blown off, they're most guaranteed to go into your shoe or into your car tire. So
I think it's just important to evaluate your situation, stay off the roads only when you need to go out. You have to consider all the debris that's going to be out there. There is a significant risk for a nail puncturing a tire. And now not only do you have, you're not able to get to where you want to go, but you just became a traffic obstacle. So that is something that you have to consider also. If your situation is okay and you want to volunteer, you can of course reach out to the American Red Cross, or in the event of a post-storm, post-disaster, we would set up volunteer reception centers where we would be able to process those volunteers and gain some sort of order to the situation.
I'd like to add to let the first responders do their job.
Absolutely.
Don't get in their way. Even the Red Cross, and our response is we wait till county emergency management or fire department or some other official asks us to come in. They're ready for us to come in. Many times a well-meaning public will flock to the scene, and they just create more of a burden on the law enforcement folks and the first responders. And as far as volunteering, please try and affiliate yourself with a recognized agency that is doing emergency relief, and that's going to be better all the way around. So you're in with an agency that has a plan for recovery, they have the resources, and you're not just trying to do your own thing out there.
Well, and I'm sure that especially in a big, if something really big were to happen, that you would take volunteers right off the, you said you'd have tents, but would it be something that you would encourage people to go even now? Like if they know they would be willing after a storm, if something were to happen in our area to lend help, to go now and just sign up and get on a list and
Absolutely. We're actively doing sheltering training and response training in preparation for the hurricane season. Of course, we do it all year long, but we've had more and more public offerings, and the courses are getting better and a little shorter, so you don't have to sit a whole day in a class. We have online trainings as well that anyone can take, and this is a great time to plug our website. All this information we're talking about, the preparedness, the recovery, all that stuff can be on our website, redcross.org. I know the county has a website as well.
Yes, it's lakecountyfl.gov, and keyword emergency will get us right to the emergency management webpage.
And a website I use quite often is the state website, floridadisaster.org. It's a wealth of information on planning and preparing for disaster.
And were you saying earlier something about an app on your phone? Did you?
Yes, the Red Cross also has 6 different applications. You can simply dial * Red Cross from a smartphone, and it'll give you your choice of all 6 of those apps. We have hurricane apps, shelter apps. You can look and see which shelters are open on that application, wildfire, and some other things, including earthquake. I'm sure that's not probably a priority on people's minds in Florida, but a lot of good stuff. First aid app is on there as well, if you find yourself in a situation where you need to do first aid.
Oh, well, that's really interesting. So does it give you, and does that app, like if you were to put in, huge gushing cut? Or gushing
Yeah, it can help you with all first aid, not paramedic
Yeah,
level.
we're not going to amputate anything.
Yeah.
I get, yes.
Yeah, but first aid, yes, it's
Basic.
great. Social media nowadays is just booming with all the things. I get alerts from different counties in the region when they have the slightest severe weather. So that's another tool people can use and look in their counties for what resources they might have.
What other things, Chief, what is...
Well, I'd like Spencer to talk a little bit about the Vulnerable Population Registry.
Oh,
Yes, we have the Special Needs Registry. Whenever, going back to the shelters that we open, we do have a special needs population, and those are the ones that are electrically dependent on any sort of life-saving equipment. It could be, oxygen, or they may have some sort of mobility concerns. They can either call our office, or they can mail it in. They can go to our website, and we would take their information. Their information would go to the health department, and then we would keep that registry. In the event of any sort of shelter activation, we would be able to assist those individuals in seeking the shelter that they need, whether it be at a special needs shelter or at a hospital. So that is a very important service that we do provide to those citizens.
now does that have anything to do with also after the storm, anybody checking on them, or is it just pretty much just to get them to the right place before it happens?
It's a dual function. One of the functions of that citizens information line, that's a non-911 number, is if they want to call in and see what the status of individuals are, we can most definitely help that person try to connect.
Well, and we're running out of time, but there is one other phone number there's one other thing that I think is important. A lot of people don't have landlines anymore. They just have their cell phones. And if you, I know that there's an emergency alert that you can get on your phone that they will call, but don't you have to go into into a website and sign up for that alert to come to your phone?
There is, and that program is Alert Lake. It's completely free, and all they have to do is go in, register their number, and we can send out an alert to either landline, a cellular phone, or via email. In this year and moving forward, the FCC, along with NOAA, they're actually pushing out alerts to particular cell phone carriers and those cell phones with the tower that's closest to them. So that's something that's very interesting.
And I know that has really saved lives. I know when we had some hurricanes back in the years, there was people who actually got those alerts. They were able to even let other people around them know and got into shelter because of it. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for all of your information and your time here today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.